Hello everybody and welcome to the NetBird YouTube channel. In this one we are going to be installing Docker. We're going to be going over some Docker usage basics, and then we're going to be installing the community edition of Portainer, a feature-rich, easy-to-use graphical interface for actually managing Docker and your Docker Compose stacks. And really one of the beautiful things about Docker is you can run it on just about anything. For this video, I am going to be installing it on this guy. Looks pretty cool. This is actually a relatively affordable single board computer with a Intel CPU in it. We got some hard drives attached to it. This is going to be our Linux server. The only thing I've done so far is I've installed Ubuntu server directly on it, and that is where we're going to be working in. Limitations really only arise when it comes to the actual Docker containers and applications you want to run, as some of those might be too resource intensive for your hardware. So you need to judge what you're actually wanting to do with Docker to then decide how powerful you want your hardware to be. So what I'm going to do is plug this in over there to my modem, and then we're going to SSH into it and begin the basic installation of Docker. Now there are a number of ways to do this. You can install the Docker IO package, but what I like to do, and what's probably the best way in my opinion, is just using their convenience script. This will set up your repositories, get any dependencies, get the whole Docker Compose stuff, and even create the Docker group for you. So we're just going to drop that on in to download that script, and we can see it's right here. So then to run it, all we need to do is a sudo sh and then point that to the get docker sh script, hit enter, and then it's going to do everything for us. And then that's going to look a little something like this. Now to run Docker, at the moment, we're going to need to use sudo commands. We don't want to do that, so we're just going to add our user to the Docker group. And to do that, it's just a sudo usermod a docker and then your username. In my case, it is Brandon. Hit enter, and then from there we could do new grp docker, so that will refresh it without having to log in and out. Hit enter, and now we can run Docker commands. If I just type in Docker here, it's going to bring up a list of all of the different commands that we are going to run. I'm not going to go through absolutely everything in this video. It would be a 3-hour long video, but I am going to quickly go over some of the basic usage for Docker. And the first thing to talk about is actually running and pulling images. An example of a really common image that you will probably end up running or pulling at some point is just the base Ubuntu image. So we're going to be running a version of Ubuntu in a containerized environment within our Ubuntu operating system, but since it's in Docker, it's completely isolated from our host system, unless of course we allow it to access things. So to download Ubuntu, we just do docker pull Ubuntu. And then it's going to go ahead and grab that image. By default, it is the latest tag, which is just the most recent available version. Now, let's say I want to run Ubuntu and I want to actually interact with it. All I would do is run a docker run-it and Ubuntu. So Ubuntu. Hit enter, and then it's going to launch that container, and now I am logged in as root within that container, so this is technically a completely independent instance of Ubuntu. Now, if I wanted to get out of here, I believe I could just type in exit, and that is going to take me right back to my actual shell here. If I go ahead and type in docker ps, we can see we have no containers running. That's because when I exited out, it killed that container, so it's not going to be running in the background. Now what I'm going to do is make Docker run in the background so I can show you how to list your actively running containers. And to do that, I'm just going to run docker run. This is still interactive, but I'll follow it up with detached and Ubuntu. So then when we run that, we can see it's going to be running in the background. So docker ps, we can see we have our Ubuntu container right there. And then of course I can stop this container just with a docker stop Ubuntu. Apologies, when you don't give these containers set names in the variables, it gives them these kind of funny names here. So the name of this container is actually Cranky Einstein. So if I hit enter, it's going to go ahead and kill that container. It gave me some feedback, so now if I do docker ps, you can see there's no containers running. And now something really important with Docker is how is data actually stored. That Ubuntu container, I didn't assign any volumes or storage on my host system, so when I stopped it, if I did anything on the image, it's all gone. So you do need to set up some sort of persistent storage. Now, I'll bring up a docker run command again, and this time I'm going to add some additional variables, or flags. Now I'm going to run this interactively, and this time I'm going to give it a proper name, and I'm going to just call it Ubuntu. And then from here, I'm going to add a volume. This is going to be a actual Docker volume. If I did something like this, so let's say home Brandon test, that would put it in the actual home Brandon directory on my host system. But for this, we're going to create a Docker volume, so it is separate from that. And within the container, so within the Ubuntu container we're spinning up, this is going to be the mount point. And then the image name, which is just Ubuntu. So if I hit enter, you can see we are now in. Now if I ls my mount point here, you can see there's nothing there. But if I did something like a echo test to mount test like that, hit enter. And if I ls in there again, you can see we have a new test folder. But now if I exit out, hit enter, run a docker ps, you can see the container is completely dead, but the data is still there because it's in that Docker volume. By default, it's stored in the directory var lib docker volumes. So we can see that if I do a sudo cat command to see what's in there, into var lib docker volumes test, into the data and test folder, hit enter, you can see we have test. So the data is now persistent. Now that container is not something I want to keep, so I could just do a docker volume remove test. And now, oh, and not now, we actually need to remove the container. So if I do docker remove Ubuntu, hit enter, we've removed Ubuntu. So now I can volume remove test, and now it's gone. They do that so you don't accidentally just remove a container and then completely delete all the data that you wanted to store persistently. Alternatively, I could have ran a docker container prune command just like that. This will remove all stopped containers, and you can see it removed a couple different containers in my little tests and experiments here. Now just to show you an example of a bind mount, which you'll probably use if you're spinning up a variety of things, Jellyfin, file servers, things like that, when you want the data on the host system so you can easily manipulate it. The only thing we'd really do differently, so I'm going to go back up to that docker run command, and here I'm actually going to do that example where I point this to my home directory, into my home folder, and we'll make a new folder called Ubuntu. So hit enter, go ahead and run that interactively, and then I can cd into mount. And now if I just create a new document, so test.txt or something like that, and then go ahead and exit on out of here, you can see if I ls, and here now there's a new folder called Ubuntu, and if I cd in there, ls, we have that test.txt. So that's real simple how volumes and bind mounts kind of work. So now just real quick on networking. To test this out, we'll use the Nginx container, very popular one. So if we do docker run, this time we're going to do a port flag, so -p. And the first half, so this 8080 is going to be how I access it. And Nginx is actually running on port 80, so that's what the container is running. And I would just grab the Nginx. You don't usually actually need to pull the containers with a pull command. If you just run it, it'll automatically pull it if it detects the container or the image is not actually there. So if I hit enter here, you can see it's going to go ahead and do that. Couldn't find the image, so it's going to go ahead and pull it. It's going to grab everything it needs. And now you can see that it is running. So if we actually head over here to the IP address of this machine, so 178, and we go to the port 8080, hit enter, you can see just like that, we have welcome to Nginx. Now by default, Docker uses bridge networking. I'm going to hit Control C just to get out of here. That's going to kill the container. There are instances where you may want to use the host network. So this is going to give the container direct access to the host's network stack, which is really helpful when you need high performance or low level networking when all that's required. If I ran that again with the net equals host command, you can see there's no ports there because it's just going to be running on port 80. Hit enter. That's going to go ahead and spin up. So now if I just get rid of this port altogether, you can see welcome to Nginx. We're now running on the host. I don't really do that too often. Examples where I might is if I'm running like Pi-hole, for instance, or maybe even a proxy manager. So when it comes to the base Docker functionality, that is the absolute minimum that you should know and be aware of before you go and dive into it, even if you're using a GUI such as Portainer to actually manage and help you with your Docker environment. But to be quite frank, I myself don't even really use Docker run commands at all because I use Docker Compose for just about everything. Docker Compose is awesome because one, you can store all those different variables and flags in a single file and be able to easily edit and manipulate it whenever you want. And it allows you to spin up multiple containers together in a Docker Compose stack, which is especially helpful for when other containers depend on each other to run, such as if you're running a web service and you may need something like a Postgres database running side by side. You can link them together, put them in the same Docker network, have it so the web app won't start up until the database is started up. There's a lot of functionality. And just to give you a quick demo on this, let's actually just use the NetBird Docker Compose here. So if I do just let's NetBird Docker, go down here, we have all the information on the Docker run stuff, but here we have a nice little Docker Compose, and you can see it has some stuff. So we have our container name there. We have network mode host, which that might not be necessary considering we have netadmin here, so we might update that. Cap-add, just adding some capabilities so it can access some of the system resources. This is using WireGuard from the kernel in the backend, so this container is going to need to be able to touch the root system a little bit here. We have the environment variable for our setup key. This is going to create a Docker volume called NetBird client in the location for var lib netbird within the container itself, and it's going to grab the latest netbird image. So if I just go ahead and give that a copy, let's head over here, and I'm going to go back a directory, and I like to, whenever I have a Docker Compose stack, I like to keep everything in its own unique folder. So I'm going to make a directory for netbird here, and let's cd into netbird. And from there, I'm going to use nano, which is, in my opinion, the best text editor, and we're going to make a file called compose.yaml. Hit enter, Control V, paste that on in there. And for this compose stack, we are going to have to edit just a couple things. First is going to be our host name, which I will call this Zimaboard because that's what it's running on. And then here we're going to need a setup key to actually get this going. And then later on, we'll be able to use this to connect to our server from anywhere in the world so we can actually manage our Docker server no matter where we happen to be. So let's go to netbird.io, get started, and then I will continue with GitHub. From there, I'm going to go over to setup keys. We're going to create a new setup key. This is a demo, and I will set this in the group of home lab and create that setup key. So then all we need to do is give that a copy and then paste it on in there. So it has all the variables it needs. It's really easy to go and edit this later. I don't have to fiddle with Docker run commands. So I just go Control O, get rid of that. And now from the folder that it's in, I can simply run a Docker compose up command just like this, hit enter, and then it's going to pull that image automatically and spin up the container. And it looks like we're spinning up just fine. So we do have options. We can hit D to detach. Alternatively, when I ran it, I could have just done -D and I wouldn't have seen any of those logs. But now NetBird is technically running. So if I ran that Docker PS command, we could see we have NetBird client running. And if I head over here, we should see our actual peer, Zimaboard, right there connected, ready to go. And if I wanted to stop it, all I would do is Docker compose stop, hit enter. It's going to bring down that container. So if I did Docker PS, nothing's there anymore. And you can see the connection for that just went away. Now I'm actually not going to spin that up again because I'm going to show you how to add Docker Compose stacks in Portainer. That is how I want to manage Docker for this particular machine because it gives us that nice, beautiful GUI. So let's go ahead and go over here. This is the Portainer Community Edition. We're going to set up a new server installation. This is going to be on Docker standalone, and this is going to be Docker on Linux. We're going to have to first create a volume for the Portainer data. You can see why I kind of went over everything. Now you actually know what I'm talking about if you're new with this kind of stuff. So create that volume for Portainer data, and then we're going to copy this command. This is the Docker run command to initially spin up Portainer. So you can see we are running it detached on the port 8000, also on the port 9443 for HTTPS. We gave it a name. Has the flag restart always, so if it goes down, it will try to spin back up, pointing the volume of the Docker sock, so you are giving it access to manage and control all your Docker containers, because that is a bind, so it's var run Docker sock on the host machine. You can also see it in the container. And then we're attaching that volume that we just created and then spinning up the latest LTS version of the Portainer CE container. Hit enter. And then it's going to grab and pull everything that we need. So now it should be running. If I just run a Docker PS, we can see that Portainer is in fact running. Now, if I open up a new tab, and this time we're going to go to HTTPS, our server IP address, so 78, and this is on the port 9443. Hit enter, connection not private, it's okay. This is our server, so we're going to go to the website anyways, visit the site, and we're going to create our first account. So I'm going to give myself a username, password, and then go ahead and create our user. So from here, we're going to go ahead and get started with the local environment. A cool thing about Portainer is if you have more servers with this, you can add them and manage them all from a single instance. So I'm going to go ahead and click on get started here. And now we have our local instance. I can just hit live connect. And then we could see everything we got going on. So we do already have some containers. You could see that I have the NetBird client and a bunch of the stuff that we were playing around with. And I can easily just get rid of those here. So if I selected them all, I can remove them, remove the non-persistent volumes, and remove. And just like that, all those are cleared out. You could also see some of the images that we've pulled. We could see the networks that we currently have available, including that bridge and host that we talked about, and then the volumes. So I'm actually going to get rid of this NetBird volume for now. And within here, you can spin up individual containers without doing a stack. So if I clicked add container here, I could point it to the actual container, add my various port mapping variables and all that. But generally in here, I like to do everything in compose stacks. So for this, it is a little bit different. If I add a stack, this will be my NetBird stack. I can point it to repositories, upload it, or just paste with the web editor here. So again, I'm going to copy this, drop it on in, change our hostname to Zimaboard, grab another setup key, and then drop it on in here. Now, we do have our environmental variables right here, but you can add environmental variables through the GUI if you'd like to, or load variables from a env file, which when you get into like pre-made Docker Compose stacks with a bunch of different containers in it, you're probably going to run into those. But for now, we are good. I'm just going to click on deploy the stack. You can see the deployment is in progress. It's not going to need to pull that image because it's already in there, and it's done. So if I go to my dashboard here, we can see our two containers. We have our NetBird client and Portainer. Open up the NetBird client. We could get a lot more information about it, including quick access to stop, kill, restart, pause, and check out the logs, inspect, view the console. So if I click on logs here, we can see all of those logs. And that is just a quick overview of Docker, helping you get a little head start if this is something you're just now getting into. It is a wonderful platform, and in this video, I just barely scraped the surface. There's so much more you can do with it. So many different ways to run things, create networks. And with that, I do recommend you check out the official Docker documentation, and of course the NetBird documentation if you want to access this from anywhere in the world. For example, let's go ahead and disconnect from my Wi-Fi. Let's connect to my hotspot. So now I'm no longer connected to my network. If I hit enter, it's just going to stall. It's not going to work. It's not accessible to me anymore. Let's go ahead and click on connect here. I'm going to authenticate myself with our single sign-on. And now if I go back over here, give it a refresh, you can see everything's going to load up just fine. That is because I do have, under networks, I do have a subnet LAN set up here so I can access all the local IPs just directly that's in my home network. But alternatively, of course, I could go over here to peers, copy the domain here of my Zimaboard, drop it on in, go to the port 9443, not forgetting the HTTPS, and then I can access it this way as well from, again, anywhere in the world. So with that, I do hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it helped you out at least a little bit to get started with Docker. The main reason I made this one is because I'm going to be using Portainer in a few upcoming videos, so do subscribe so you do not miss those. And with all that, I do hope you have an absolutely beautiful day, and goodbye.